So it is summertime, which as a church leader often means a drop in attendance and less engagement in the life of your church. But it doesn't quite have to be that way. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to give you 5 ways that your church can engage your people over the summer.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less, we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Androsian. Joining me is Dylan Dodson, and today we're talking about 5 ways to create engagement over the summer.
So it's June now. So
it's summer.
Maybe we should have done this a month ago, but better late than never.
Hey, whatever.
Summer is here, which often means less attendance, less engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we try to the best of our ability combat that in our churches?
Yeah.
So here are 5 things to consider to create more engagement. Here's number 1. Do a live Q&A Sunday.
I think number 1 is one of the best ones. I think this is the most out of the box.
So we are in summer number 3 as a church. We launched in April 2017. So we had the summer of 17, 18, and 19. Every July 4th weekend, or the Sunday closest to July 4th, we have done a live Q&A.
Yes.
And so instead of a typical preaching on a very typically low attended Sunday, we make it fun and exciting so people want to come.
Yeah.
How we do it is we have a program called Text in Church, but you could do it a number of ways. We don't actually give people a microphone. We have them text a number during the service, and then we have someone who's filtering the questions, and they'll give it to our person who's running our screens. We'll type in the question into the computer, and we will answer them as we come in. We don't always get to all of them, but what it does is it allows people to we have 3 people on stage. Sometimes we have 2. It doesn't really matter how many you have. I wouldn't have more than 3 because that's too long.
Yeah.
And literally the whole sermon time, although will be a little bit longer than what we normally do a sermon, is just text and questions, and people love it. They really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we get questions that range from deep and serious to actual theological questions to ones that are much more surface level and kind of lighthearted.
Yep.
But yeah, I think people love it. And the thing I like about it is it's very unexpected. Even if they know what's coming up, most people have never had a Q&A be the service. You know, It may be that like an after service thing or like a special one-off thing, but it's actually like Sunday morning, any questions will be answered. And usually, well, I mean, not usually, the way we do it and the way I would recommend doing it is the pastor, like Dylan does it, but always have someone else too.
Yeah.
So it's not just Dylan.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it by yourself because that's kind of boring. And
so seeing as Dylan's younger, we get someone who's older in there too to give a different perspective on things. And yeah, I love the way it turns out.
And it may seem very intimidating to you that we would do that, but I would say it's really not that bad.
Right.
And people aren't expecting you to know everything. Keep them all short. There's a few questions that I'll tell the people getting the text, like we're not going to answer just because time doesn't permit.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know if we've had a question, but example, someone might be like, well, what's your position on women's roles in ministry? Or whatever. It's like that. I mean, that's just 2 minutes is not a succinct answer for that. And we don't want to distract from other, you know what I mean? And so you can say, hey, if you get questions about these X, Y, and Z, we're not going to answer them. You don't have to tell your people that. You just don't happen to get to it. Yep. But whoever's doing the text, just tell them if there's something that you're worried about, just say, if we get questions about this, don't do it. But I mean, we haven't had any that were bad. No. So people really have a good time with it.
And a little bonus thing, I have no idea if we're going to do it this year, but last year we took the access questions we didn't have time to do. And I think we did the next day or the day after.
Facebook
we did
Live or something.
Yeah, we did. We went on a Facebook Live and answered the ones we didn't have time to because we got enough questions that.
And last thing with it, I'll be really curious to see. This is our first summer with 2 services. I'll be curious to see if anyone that comes to first stays.
Yeah,
because it'll be different.
Good question.
The second service. So have a live Q&A Sunday on a very low attended Sunday like July 4th weekend. People will love it, and it's something fun to do.
For sure.
Number 2, don't cancel groups all summer. So if you have a small group ministry or some sort of equivalent, what we do in church world is we just give up in the summer.
Yep.
And yes, people are gone, but part of the problem is we just kind of give up and kind of gives the impression like, what's the even point? Now, some ministries, like maybe you have I don't know if you're listening to this, if you have a large student ministry, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Some ministries, you have to take a step back because you need people to run them.
Yeah.
But we make a mistake when we assume that people are gone all summer. They're gone a week or 2. Now, they're all gone because take a vacation within a 3-month span. So overall, there's going to be less people there because everyone's leaving in a short time.
Yeah.
But they're not all gone all summer. Like people have jobs. They have stuff to do. And in fact, they're actually looking for things to do because everything else is closed. And so like for us, we just took a break. And so actually... And now the last week of May or first week of June, we're starting our groups back, and we're going to do them for like 8 or 10 weeks or whatever, take a small break. So we're not saying don't take a break at all, but I would do something, maybe make them every other week, depending on the size of your church. But don't assume that you need to cancel groups all summer because people are still here. It's okay if the groups aren't as attended as much, but people are looking for things to do. Life still goes on. So I would say don't assume that you have to cancel anything, specifically with groups, because you don't really need a bunch of people serving to make them happen.
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to think back. I think probably every group I've been in. There are times during the season where you naturally take a break, whether it be just for a month or a short time in between things. And I can't think of a time where it hasn't been getting to the end of that little break period, even though it's usually pretty short, where everyone in the group isn't like anxious, saying like, let's meet a week early. Let's just get back together. And so taking the whole summer off, I feel like that's a huge momentum killer.
Right. Like for us, we're recording this the last week of May.
Yeah.
This is when our groups are launching again. The week before this, groups had not launched, but our group still got together, got a social because everybody wanted to hang out together.
Yeah, so did ours. Right.
And so, don't cancel groups all summer. Or if there's other ministries that you might scale them down, but don't give up the summer because people are still here.
Yep.
Number 3, try some church-wide events. So one benefit of maybe scaling back, because you probably can't do everything to the same capacity, is try some church-wide events that are fun, and because you have maybe more time to do them that you would normally have. So for example, one of our episodes, we've talked about our $2 trivia nights that we do every month. We're not doing them at all during the summer. So that's not doing them in June, July, or August. So it's taking 3 months off. So because of that, because it was a monthly event, this now gives us the freedom to maybe try something else. So in June, we're going to do an outdoor movie night in our parking lot, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then in early August, we're going to do a barbecue. Now, if you're not from the South, a barbecue is not hamburgers and hot dogs.
Not a cookout. I discovered.
This is what Brian thought when we talked about this idea. He's like, what's so fun about a cookout? Right. A barbecue with, pork
with an actual pig,
sweet tea, just something that's actually fun.
Yeah.
And so we're doing some church-wide events. Now I want to be clear, these are not outreach events. These are events that your church would want to go to. We probably should do another episode on this. I'm not a big fan of outreach events. Instead, I would focus on doing things your people want to go to, because then they'll actually show up and invite their friends.
Yeah.
If it's like an outreach event, like nobody really wants to go to that because it's not fun for them.
True.
And so we're doing some church-wide events. So maybe for you it's a cookout, or maybe for you it's a big pool party. Maybe you've got someone who's got a big pool or whatever that wants to invite people over.
Yeah.
A summer movie night. We're renting what we're doing is it's going to be free. I mean, it costs money, so maybe you can't do this. But we're renting a giant screen outside. We're going to sell concessions, a barbecue. I don't know, whatever it is for you, but try like one or two. You don't need to have a ton of these, but just fun events to bring everybody together.
Yeah, and I think over the summer people want things to be going on, but don't want so much to be going on. Then they feel like they're missing everything.
Yep.
And so having one or two big things, they can look forward to it for a few weeks, however long you're promoting it. But it's not so much where it's like, oh, every month in the summer that we're already busy, I'm having to miss things or I'm having to rearrange my schedule. So just having a few things that are big for everybody.
And I said this, you've planned a good event when people are so bummed that they have to miss it.
Yeah,
like
true.
somebody found out this past Sunday that they're going to be gone during our outdoor movie night, and he was like, oh, that stinks.
Yeah.
Like that means you've done something good. You want people are coming to it. And so again, number 3, just try some church-wide events that you maybe not normally would get to do because things are scaled back a bit.
Right.
Number 4, put as much energy and effort and prayer into your summer Sundays as you do the rest of the year. Now, nobody would come out and say like summer Sundays, worship experiences, services aren't as important, but we give that demeanor. Like we say things like, oh, there's not going to be as many people here, or maybe we don't even say it out loud, but you think it. So it comes into your sermon prep, your service planning, your attitude on Sunday morning. You got to put as much, even like, so this past weekend for us, when we were recording this, was Memorial Day weekend. For us, the weekends like that kill us attendance wise, because we have a lot of people who are young professionals or in that stage of life. So they're gone.
Yeah. But
so if we have the mindset of like, it's going to be a low attended Sunday, whatever, like, we actually had 8 first-time guests, which for us is a lot. On a Memorial Day weekend, we had super low attendance. And it's really hard to flip the switch on Sunday to say, oh, no, I want to try really hard because somebody new came, as opposed to already putting the plan and preparation into it. Yeah. And so I think a part of the problem that there's not as much engagement over the summer is because church leaders, even if they don't say it out loud, they give off this like, oh, it doesn't matter as much. And people feed off of that.
Yeah, and I think I would even say it needs to be flipped to where in the summer months or the months that in your context are going to be smaller, you got to put extra in.
Right.
Because we did some different things with our auditorium this week because we knew it would be smaller going into the summer and things like that. And I remember thinking this Sunday as I was sitting in there, it doesn't feel like it's smaller, even though it was a lower Sunday. But it doesn't feel different. We rearranged
the chairs to make it, feel better.
But because we planned for it to, or we thought that it would be, but not in a negative way. But we thought, hey, if this is it, let's embrace it and let's bring the energy up. And it worked.
It's funny with that. I think I was telling you recently, there are some Sundays, I mean, we're still we got 2 services, a smaller, newer church.
Yeah.
The services that are less filled, I've actually found that I've done a better job because I've thought to myself, okay, there's less people here. I've got to be more energetic and more passionate so that they can feed off of it. So I think you said that's a good point, is actually you need to put more into the summer so that people don't feel like it's bad.
Yeah, I've heard people say things like this, that when they're in front of a large crowd or in something with that's high energy, I'm just naturally better because I can feed off it. And while there's some truth to that, I think we can rely far too much on it to where if that, like you said, if that's not there, then all of a sudden, well, we don't bring the energy in or we don't bring it in. And so it's just kind of a dead room.
Right. So again, you may have less things. Maybe you don't have as many people playing in the band or less videos that you normally do, or just they're not as able to do as much because you have fewer people. You still, for what you have, you still give it your all. You still try really hard. You still try to preach the best sermon that you can. Like I was kind of bummed that on Memorial Day, I was really excited about that message. And I was like, it's Memorial Day. But it's like, it doesn't matter because whether you have 10 people or 1,000 people, there's 10 people or 1,000 people that God is allowing you to impact, and you're doing it for God, not for people anyway.
Right.
And so again, I've just found, yes, there's fewer people in the summer, but primarily it's on church leaders who buy into this idea of like, it's summer, we're just not going to try as hard, which means it's your fault and it's my fault when there's less engagement.
Yes.
And then number 5, this is kind of, don't do this, or else if you don't do this, you'll have engagement. If that makes any sense. Don't make a big deal about the drop in attendance. Everybody knows it, and even if they don't know it, people are not thinking about it like you are. And so when you say things from stage like, well, I know there's not as many people here today, or, I really wish so-and-so could have been here, like it just kind of gives off this mood of like, oh, you're right, there aren't as many people here today.
Yep.
I guess it doesn't really matter as much because if there's not as many people, what we're doing is not as important.
Yep.
And so I would say the 4th one was more of an internal thing of like you don't say anything, but you give the vibe that it doesn't matter because there's less people. The 5th is an external thing where you're actually saying things like there's less people. Now, that doesn't mean you don't talk about it amongst the staff and plan for it. Like we talk about it where we say on a lower attended Sundays, like how can we create more engagement in the service or change the chairs or whatever, but it's not an excuse not to try. And you certainly don't go to your everyday church member and say, isn't it a bummer? Because they're not thinking about it until you say something.
Yep. I think it can be very easy for as a pastor or a staff to not mean to talk negative, but just in your conversation with other people that go to the church to have that kind of thing come up. And there is some level where you need to be able to have people you can talk to, especially if you are frustrated. Like you shouldn't internalize everything, but it's also not something to air out to everybody.
Right.
So in your community group or your small group or whatever, it's probably not a good idea to be like, I don't know if you're there Sunday was kind of low, but and because all it does is just put off this negativity that essentially, I mean, to me, it essentially comes across as you saying, I'm not happy with the way things are. And not that if things are going bad, not that you have to be happy with everything, but if you're the leader, you shouldn't be giving off this vibe that, hey, I'm unhappy with what you all helped me create, essentially.
Yeah. So again, not publicly talking about it. I think, again, if you have an internal vibe and you're publicly saying this bad, well, everyone else is just going to kind of give up until September hits.
Yep.
And again, what we know is people
if they
still
make it that far.
Yeah. People. Yeah, that's right. Especially if you're a church plant. People still are here for the summer and they're looking for things to do. Like that's good, especially depending on where you live. Like school calendars are different. There's a lot more year round now. People that are at homeschooled aren't following the traditional calendar anyway. So yes, like September, late August is a big time. January is a big time. But we have found, I mean, this is our 3rd year as a church, that May to early July, like the weekend after July 4th, is our lowest attended Sundays. Once mid-July happens, we're getting back up to normal. But if we took the normal approach of like, we're not really going to try till September, till the weekend after Labor Day, like that's 6 weeks that there's people here and we're not doing anything with. So again, those are 5 ways to create engagement over the summer. Have a live Q&A Sunday. Don't cancel groups all summer. Try some church-wide events. Put as much energy, effort, and prayer into your summer Sundays as you do the rest of the year, and don't make a big deal about the drop in attendance. So thanks for being with us today. Again, practicalplanning.com/questions. You can submit a question. We'll talk about it in a future episode. And thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time on Practical Church Planting. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planting. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planting, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform.
And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast if you just search Practical Church Planting on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe.
See you next time.